Hi, everyone. It's my great pleasure and honor to introduce you Professor Mike Hinch. Professor Mike Hinch is the president of IFIP, the International Federation for Information Processing, and he's also the president of the Irish Computer Society and past chair of IEEE UK and Ireland session. He's currently professor of software engineering and head of the Department of Computer Science and Information Systems of, of the Limerick University in Ireland. Also, Professor Mike is Emeritus Director of LIDO, the Science Foundation Ireland Research Center for Software. And before joining the university, he was the director of NASA Software Engineering Laboratory. It's my great pleasure to have you with us, Mike. Please take the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind introduction. And thank you, everybody, for your kind invitation to join you today. I think some of you know I have long associations with Brazil and with SBC. Unfortunately, I've never actually made it to Florianopolis, and maybe another time we can manage to do that. So I've been asked today to introduce IFIP to you and to talk about IFIP as a global framework for socially responsible development and the application of ICT. So we'll begin with a very short video just to introduce IFIP to you and some of the things that we do before I get into some specifics. Thank you.
IFIP is the global federation of ICT professional societies and associations committed to advancing professional and socially responsible applications of technology. Our members are ICT professionals, researchers, academics, teachers, and policymakers who are focused on developing and sharing ICT knowledge and expertise, promoting global digital equity, educating and enhancing public understanding about technology and its potential, and increasing professionalism and professional standards.
IFIP runs over 100 events each year to bring together international experts on different ICT-related topics, to share the latest developments, explore possibilities, and discuss issues of relevance to the ICT profession. We're a strong advocate for digital equity and work closely with other global bodies like UNESCO and ITU to promote understanding of the issues relating to technology and to collaborate on solutions to help us achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
The biennial IFIP World Computer Congress brings together thought leaders from across the globe to share their knowledge and expertise and to discuss emerging technology issues, while our World IT Forum event, or WIT4, is specifically focused on identifying ways to enhance access to technology for developing nations to enable them and their citizens to play an active role in the global digital economy.
Our International Professional Practice Partnership, known as IP3, is the leading group driving professional standards for technologists around the world. And it was responsible for having the importance of professionalism as a key enabler of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals recognized and discussed at the United Nations. IFIP also seeks to raise awareness and understanding amongst the wider community about where technology is going, how it can enhance the quality of our lives, and how to ensure that all peoples have equal access and opportunity. We are uniquely positioned to achieve these outcomes through our global network of technical committees and working groups that bring together experts in different fields to share and enhance their knowledge and to focus attention on key issues relating to technology.
Our members have access to the biggest network of technical experts in the world, enabling them to form valuable connections, grow their knowledge and skills, and contribute to the development of new insights and global standards for ICT professionals.
So I know because you're attending this event, you're interested in ICT, and more likely you're an ICT professional in some way or form. So I don't need to convince you or convert you, but you understand, of course, the importance of ICT in just about every form of transportation. Normally we would be getting together at the event live, and we would all travel by train or by plane or by bus. Even nowadays, bicycles and scooters are using ICT because we're using sharing apps and rental apps, whereby these can be used by people who can just pick them up on a street corner and drop them at the next street corner where it suits them. I have a colleague who's very interested in transportation with cars, and he believes that we can get rid of traffic lights. And in fact, he thinks that we don't necessarily need to have self-driving cars, we just need cars that talk a lot more to each other. And I was reading an interesting article in the newspaper the other day, where in England they've been doing some experiments and have discovered that they can reduce emissions by up to 2/3 by having cars communicate with the traffic lights themselves, so that the cars slow down or speed up and don't necessarily stop at a traffic light. So by avoiding the need to stop, we can greatly reduce the number of emissions and the amount of emissions. And then, of course, we have more opportunistic and more challenging attempts to perform better forms of transport. And just today, Jeff Bezos did his flight to space. We saw Richard Branson do it previously. For more than 20 years now, I've been working on what was originally called Constellation, and then Orion, and then Artemis, and then Constellation again, and now it's back to Artemis. But Artemis is the mission for a heavy load back to the moon, from where the staging will be done to go to Mars. This is to be the biggest software project in history. Initially, when it was conceived 20 years ago, we were talking about an estimated software budget, software only, of $8 billion US. Now we're probably looking at something dramatically more because of the amount of time that has passed. It is typical for NASA missions to be 20 to 30 years in the planning, sometimes even longer. And you can imagine the complications and difficulties that causes. And in the last few weeks and months, we've seen much more interest in going to space. We've seen the new rover and the new helicopter on the surface of Mars. UAE and India and China also have missions to Mars, interested in exploring that planet, with the belief that somehow there was life at some point, and the exploration of the planet to find some water would indicate that life did once exist on the planet. The rule of thumb that NASA uses is that if there is water for 50,000 years, life will exist at some point. Interestingly enough, my late mother got her first patent at 81 years of age, and her patent is used in the helicopter and is assigned to NASA, and NASA have been exploiting it, and it is to do with the charging of the helicopter from the robot. We, of course, know that we've used ICT in so many areas, and Industry 4.0 is already upon us. People are already talking about Industry 5.0, the next stage of manufacturing, which of course will be heavily based on robotics and on artificial intelligence. We've seen power generation and new forms of energy being generated with the benefit of ICT, and how the use of ICT can ensure that batteries are effectively charged and effectively used. Indeed, that is one of NASA's biggest challenges, is producing a battery that can run for 12 hours, charge for 12 hours, and then run for 12 hours, because of course we have the issue of battery loss. And of course we do some of this to protect batteries, but we want to be able to use batteries that will last longer. We've seen, of course, telecommunications greatly enhanced by the existence of ICT. And unfortunately this year, we've seen how healthcare is so importantly based on ICT, and how ICT can be used so significantly in both treating patients who are ill, but also in tracking patients who might be contaminating other people and identifying their locations. And a lot of that is based on a simple device that many of us have in our pockets, and I dare say that most of us have in our pockets these days, a simple smartphone. We see, of course, this year the benefit of being able to do all sorts of transactions online, whether that's financial transactions or whether it's simply shopping. We've needed to do that so much this year. People have relied on the internet for the ability to be able to order food, even simple things like food that otherwise they might not be able to have, or would be putting themselves at risk by dealing with people or members of their family. So this has been a significant advance for us. Of course, this also leaves us open to all sorts of problems, and we can see that people have been exploited by the fact that they're using online technology, and in some cases very naive about the sort of information that they give to online apps, to online websites, to people that they just don't know, but with whom they're trusting, because they don't see that face, they don't see that individual, they think they're dealing with a device, they're forgetting they're dealing with people. And you may remember in the middle of last summer, in fact, almost exactly a year ago, there were a number of hacks to the Twitter accounts of prominent politicians and actors, not just Barack Obama, whom you see here, he's just one example, but these were hacks that posted these messages saying, if you send me $1,000 in Bitcoin, I'll send you back $2,000. Well, of course, we hope that most people were not foolish enough to believe this. I'm sure some people did, but luckily most of those people who believed this and who were naive enough to believe this probably didn't have enough understanding of how to actually send Bitcoin, and therefore would not have been caught out. But it just indicates that this sort of thing can happen. And the scary thing is that these were hacks to the accounts. These are not just fake posts. They were actually posted from the accounts of these individual people like Barack Obama, various actors, various politicians, etc. So we're truly now in a situation where we're in a world of cyber-physical social systems, where everything talks to everything. And it's a cyber-physical social system because it's based on software. That's why it's cyber. It uses physical devices, whether it's our phones, whether it's something that we wear, something that's implanted into our clothes, or something that's in our cars, and all of these talk to each other on intelligent highways. Our medical records are available everywhere. And we give so much information about ourselves to all sorts of apps and websites that then give us something in return. They give us some useful technique, some useful piece of software, but they're monetizing our data. That data is being used to sell us things, to track us, to know where we are, to know what we're doing, to know what we're buying, to know what we're eating. All of this sort of information is being given out. And of course, we intend to do that with our friends, and that's why it's a social system. But we're also sharing it with organizations whose sole goal is to make money from us, and in some cases, to exploit us. Luckily, that's not in so many cases, but it does indeed happen. So the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are a number of challenges that the United Nations has set for itself for the end of 2030. So there's actually 169 different actions divided into 17 goals. Some of these are clearly ripe for the exploitation of ICT, and ICT will be absolutely essential. Others, ICT will be a backup, but still a very useful backup. So we want to achieve no poverty, we want to achieve zero hunger, we want to achieve good health and well-being, quality education, which these days seems to mean that we're using Zoom and similar technologies. We want gender equality. We want clean water and sanitation. We want affordable and clean energy. And I already mentioned how the quest for an efficient battery was so important. But we can also improve things, again, by having better software in our cars, that we're not faking the emissions, but that we are reducing the emissions. And again, the example I gave whereby cars can talk to traffic lights so that they don't need to stop, that their speed will be adjusted to avoid them stopping. All of these things will make energy more efficient and better, and help keeping the environment clean. We want decent work and economic growth. We want industry innovation and infrastructure. And again, Industry 4.0 and Industry 5.0 are obvious for this, and how ICT can contribute to that with automation, with artificial intelligence, with robotics. We want reduced inequalities. We want sustainable cities and communities. And this is an area, of course, where ICT has contributed so much in smart cities and smart just about everything. But cities in particular are using ICT to reduce their footprint, to reduce the emissions, to reduce the amount of electricity needed, etc. We want responsible consumption and production. We want climate action to make sure that our climate is of high quality, breathable air, and safe for our children and our children's children. We want to focus on life below water. We want to see sustainable fisheries. We want to see the better improvement of the way fish are developed and how fish are able to breathe and grow. And in the difference in the quality of water makes a huge difference to the size of fish and to the survivability of species. Likewise, we want life on land. Many people are telling us that we need to get rid of herds of cows. In my own country, they're telling us that we have to halve our herds of cows within the next 10 years. I know this is something that would not go down well in Brazil with the huge dependence on the beef industry. And hopefully we won't have to do that. Maybe we can do things that will make life better in other ways. And lastly, the last two goals of the Sustainable Development Goals are ensuring peace, justice, and strong institutions, and partnerships for the goals. So the last two probably don't look so obviously ICT related, but of course ICT is needed for all sorts of communications nowadays. We don't send letters anymore. We don't send faxes anymore. We send emails. We send text messages. And of course, all of these contribute dramatically. So the United Nations, and particularly UNCTAD, the United Nations Commission on Trade and Development, produced what we call the SDG, and comes out in July each year. In fact, it's due out tomorrow. So this is the 2020 version of the SDG Pulse. And you can see that in 2020, the emphasis was on zero hunger, decent work and economic growth, industry innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, responsible consumption and production, and again, the peace and strong institutions and partnerships. So you'll notice that in July 2020, there was no mention of healthcare and the importance of healthcare in the year that we had and in the last 18 months, essentially. But as we count down to the end of 2030, this pulse will be updated. So as I say, the new pulse is due out tomorrow. And so while we see these 7 areas from last year, it is obvious that good health and well-being is going to be a high priority in the version that's released tomorrow. And what the United Nations says is that we want health monitoring via emerging technologies. And again, many of these technologies will be based on simple apps that we run on our smartphones and on wearable devices. We want to be able to remote contact diagnosis and treatment. I myself have been sick following my second vaccine. It's good to have the second vaccine, but I had a very bad reaction to it. And I had to send my doctor all sorts of information about my current status but via an app, because they don't want you to go and visit them in their offices for safety reasons. So we want to be able to do remote contact. We want to be able to use ICT, talk about our health, to send data about our health, and also then to engage in treatment of those people who need something to make them better. We want to do population and disease monitoring, and this is a big thing. We want to see where the outbreaks will happen. We want to see where patients have symptoms and where they've been and whom we might possibly be infecting. And then also we want to be able to follow protocols, do remote diagnostics, and check if people are indeed sick. And of course, we want to help analyze the trends, where people are moving, what the outbreaks are becoming, and how our health services are being used by patients, how patients' attitudes are, whether people are actually applying the rules correctly, whether people are following lockdowns, whether people are wearing masks, whether people are avoiding population groups that don't need to meet together and that don't need to get so close together. So all of these things in red, of course, are going to be huge things for the year going forward, and for this SDG Pulse, that they're going to say, well, this is absolutely essential. And again, a lot of this will be based on simple apps running on our phones and simple wearable devices. Unfortunately, not all of the track and tracing apps have worked terribly well. This is a cartoon from the Times of London, and you can see it says, "My world-beating test and trace system smoking hot." And Boris Johnson has been very embarrassed by his track and tracing system that has not worked particularly well. The BBC questioned, why is this? Why is the app in England not working well, whereas the app in Ireland and the app in Germany and the app around in various places around the world have been working particularly well? And the Irish Times, which is the major national newspaper in Ireland, points out why exactly. It's because we have a very young population who have smartphones, and it estimates that 23% of the people over 16 downloaded the app within the first 24 hours, and then they used it. And this is the important thing, that we're using ICT to improve our lives and to make life better. In France, by contrast, a country of about 65 million people, only about 1.5 million people downloaded the app. And it's estimated that about half of those deleted it within 2 weeks. So it's not only the failure to download the app, but it's the failure to use it afterwards and to delete it so that it is absolutely useless. So this track and tracing technology, which can do an awful lot to predict where the patterns will be, to predict where the crises will be, is useless because people aren't using it. So, in fact, Ireland has donated its open source tracing app and has become the basis of a number of apps around the world, obviously some with greater success than others, but adapted to the individual countries, adapted to the language, adapted to their customs, etc. So again, the Sustainable Development Goals, absolutely essential, and the Pulse, which we'll see this week, will obviously emphasize Goal 3, which is the improved healthcare. So we at IFIP are celebrating our 60th anniversary this year, and that's one of the main reasons I've been asked to join you today. We're about a year late because of the coronavirus and delays that were made because of that. And this is unfortunately not our headquarters, although it is around the corner from our headquarters. It's in a small town called Luxembourg, which is just outside Vienna, and it was the summer home of the Habsburgs, or one of the summer homes of the Habsburgs, a very nice small town, which is where we have our headquarters. So we were established in 1960, so that's why I say we're a little bit late having our 60th anniversary. Established by UNESCO following a very successful World Computer Congress in 1959 that was held in Paris. This is one of the first major computer science conferences. It isn't the first one by any means. You could make an argument that there were some back in the early 40s and late 30s, but this was a significant one because it brought together people from all over the world who decided that they would set up this umbrella organization to be called, well, it was originally called IFIPS, International Federation for Information Processing Societies. The name, the societies part was dropped fairly quickly, and it became IFIP. So it's a non-governmental, not-for-profit umbrella organization of societies working in the field of ICT rather than information processing. So our mission statement is that we aim to achieve worldwide professional and socially responsible development and application of these ICT technologies, which again, 60 years ago were quite new. And this goal is achieved by enhancing international cooperation amongst individuals, which is by publications and conferences, national and international organizations, in all respects of research, development, and the application of ICT, by disseminating and exchanging information, and by educating and enhancing public understanding, and increasing professionalism in the ICT workforce, and promoting global digital equity. And I do remember a number of years ago being at a conference, and the theme was all of the internet for all of the people, all of the time. We can see, particularly in the last 16 months, how access to the internet has been essential. And in countries where children haven't had access to the internet, they've lost out on a year or more of their education, and possibly will lose out on much more in the future. So we can see how essential it is to have this global equity. So we believe we're unique in being able to do this, although there are a number of other organizations that are regional, such as CLAY, such as CEARC, such as CSBC in Europe. We are unique in being global, and that's why we think that it's so important to promote the work that we do. So we have a number of ICT societies as members. We have more than 50 countries. The number varies a little bit from year to year, as you can imagine. The actual number of people involved is quite hard to gauge. 1.5 million is a conservative estimate. Some of our member societies do not have individual members. They have companies or organizations be part of their membership. So it's really impossible to say exactly how many people we reach. And even the Computer Society of India tells me that they have more than 1 million student members. So if we consider them alone, 1.5 million is incredibly underestimating the number of people that we reach. But we do have more than 3,500 active volunteers who are involved in our technical committees and working groups. And these people come from academia, from government, from industry, from all walks of life. As you can imagine, in some subject areas, we have a lot more academic interest. In other subject areas, we have a lot more industry interest. And of course, then our members reflect that. Some of the members are support industry more, some support academia more. We have a number of formal relationships, obviously with UNESCO, who established us back in 1960. The United Nations, UNCTAD, the United Nations Commission on Trade and Development, is very important to us, and in particular because this takes the lead on the SDGs and takes the lead on ICT topics in general. We also have significant dealings with the International Telecommunications Union and the International Council for Science. Of course, all of our member societies, including SBC, we have formal relationships too, but these are the outside bodies with whom we have formal relationships. So our goal is to advance ICT in various ways. So we're supporting the advancement of knowledge, and we do that through conferences, workshops, events, and publications. We have a number of journals, and we have a couple of book series that I'll come back to. We want to foster excellence in research and development, whether that's in industry or in academia. Obviously, we need to emphasize both sides of this. We organize a number of international events, as you heard in the video, typically over 100 events per year, some years even more than that. And these are done on both a local and international level. So everything from small workshops that are designed for individual working groups and their members up to open international conferences, such as the sort of one you're attending today for SBC. We want to disseminate the best high-quality information related to ICT that we can, and we do that by publishing material on our websites. We have a website for each of our TCs and each of our working groups. As I mentioned, we have a number of journals, and we have a couple of book series that are now up into the 600 volumes. We promote the adoption of global standards, and we do anything we can to support policies that will stimulate research. So we deal with the European Union, we deal with the United Nations, we deal with governments and ministers from government agencies around the world to support them in various ways, providing information, providing guidance on policies. We want to see ICT applied responsibly. So we want responsible use of ICT, and we're particularly interested in promoting ethical issues. And this has become a big area, in particular, as people are looking to artificial intelligence, to looking to AI systems making decisions about everything from who should get jobs to what kids should be accepted to various universities or schools to how much people should be paid. All of these issues, of course, involve ethics and absolutely means that we have to treat people equally. We recently published our guide to ethics, and that is available as a hard copy, and it's also available to download from our website. We want to make sure we have robust international legal frameworks. So again, we support governments from around the world in collaborating and in trying to deal with some regional issues and promote ICT. We want to promote the public understanding. So one topic that is particularly of concern to me is this idea of AI, and people think that we have machines that can think. The general public genuinely believes we have machines that are doing fantastic things. And yes, they are doing fantastic things, but not to the level that the public thinks. And the public has to understand the ethical issues again of this and how these systems are making decisions about their life that are based in some cases on the biases of the people who wrote the algorithms in the first place. And of course, we provide policy statements on topics that are relevant to society in all sorts of ways. We want to advance the role, position, and the effectiveness of our member societies, and that of course includes SBC. So we share knowledge, experiences, and good practices, again, through events and activities. We advocate the role of our member societies. We ensure that our member societies are understood by their own governments and by regional governments. And again, you could see, obviously South America would make sense that as a region, it has to have a strong voice. Likewise, Africa has to have a strong voice, in particular, as it's going to be probably the next economic powerhouse, we're being told. And of course, in Europe, we have a European Union where not every country in Europe is a member, but the vast majority are, and that is expanding. So we want to be able to advocate on behalf of those member societies to the EU, which is the largest single market in the world. We want to provide our opinions on important developments. So sometimes those opinions are given informally, but sometimes they're given formally as statements and declarations. And of course, we want to cooperate with member societies like SBC. And in particular, this year, we have a large number of extra events that we're running. We've deliberately selected a number to be 60th anniversary events, which again is partly why I'm invited to join you today. You can look at our website to see the number of items that we have in a whole range of different topics all over the world. So they'll be in different time zones. But we're running these specifically to celebrate our 60th anniversary and to show and to showcase the contribution that IFIP is making. And essentially, we're a representative global body for anybody involved in ICT. So obviously, not every society around the world is a member. That would be the ideal situation. But obviously, politics, finances, etc., don't make that happen. But as much as we can, we are representing people from all over the world. Professionalism has become a very big topic for us, and as I mentioned in the video, we have a group P3, which is looking very much at how we can include professionalism and encourage professionalism. So make sure people have the right bodies of knowledge so that they are informed and trained and up to date, that they have the basic common skills and competencies that are needed. We provide accreditation and certification. So we don't accredit individuals. What we do is we accredit the accreditation processes of our member societies, and indeed societies that are not our members if they want to come to us. So we don't look at an individual and say this person is qualified to be an ICT practitioner, but what we do is we look at the processes that member societies have for accrediting their members and giving their members higher status, etc. And so that we understand how they do that and ensure that their processes are well followed, and then that they can go and accredit their individual members because they are their members, they speak their language, they understand their constraints. And we want to promote ICT education and in particular lifelong learning, that we understand in this field people can become out of date very, very quickly. It's absolutely essential that we encourage people to keep updating their skills, to keep learning, to keep up to date, and therefore be in a position to do the best possible job that they can. And I already mentioned digital equity. We want to make sure that people have access to ICT. So obviously there are people in remote parts of the world. There are people in areas of the world that have bad and poor connectivity. And that is even in wealthy countries. Think of the poorer countries who need more support. We want to ensure that people have access to knowledge and experiences, have access to the internet. We want to be able to contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals and ensure that everybody benefits from these, not just people in certain countries. And we do have a number of activities that are tailored to achieving digital equity. And one of these is WISIS, the World Summit on the Information Society, which is run by the UN every year. This year, instead of being a one-week event, it was spread over a number of weeks so that people could join from different parts of the world at different times of the day. And we've been contributing to that for many years now. And I think we're a very valued member of that event. So in terms of the structure, IFIP has its members, its volunteers, and its staff. So the members are societies like SBC, like the British Computer Society, the ACM, the Irish Computer Society, which is my own society. And the members of those societies are our volunteers. So these are the people who contribute to our technical committees and our working groups, who do our technical work, who attend our events, who publish papers, and to give us their inputs. And then we have a very small staff in our office in Luxembourg, as I said, just outside Vienna. In terms of members, we have a number of categories. First of all, we have country representative members, which is what SBC is. So SBC is the representative for Brazil, just as the Irish Computer Society is the representative for Ireland. And we brought in a policy a number of years ago, well, a small number of years ago, whereby we could have additional members from each country. As of right now, only Ukraine has 2 members, but it's actually working very well, because the original society that was a member is very academic focused, and the society that joined as the second member is very much industry focused. So the 2 of those actually work together very well and give a much better representation to the country. So it would be very nice to see additional members from other countries too. We have what we call members at large. So these are societies that are a bit more general. So the international members at large represent more than one country. So in the past, we viewed ACM as being the US member, but they didn't like that, and very rightly so. They claim to be international. They have offices around the world. They have offices in Europe. They even have an ACM Europe organization. So they are very much international, and we recognize that by giving them international member at large status. But while that means they don't represent an individual country, they still have a single vote, just as a country representative member does. We have a small number of associate members like VLDB, who are organizations that are more specialized and don't have members in a particular country, but are more specialized on a particular area. And lastly, we have honorary members, and a few people have come and said, can I become an honorary member? Well, honorary member is something that is bestowed by the General Assembly of IFIP, and that is to people who have given significant contributions to IFIP in the past. At the moment, we have 9 honorary members, so it's a small number. We have a General Assembly, which meets every September, and this runs on the United Nations type model. So each country, which is each country representative member, has 1 vote, and again, the members at large have 1 vote. We have a technical assembly, which is where the technical work is done. So this is probably most of interest to members of SBC. We have 13 technical committees, which I'll mention in a minute. And we have over 100 working groups. At the moment, we have about 130, in fact. The numbers change from year to year, not ridiculously, but we create new working groups as we see new areas are of interest and need to be addressed. And we retire working groups when we see that their work has been taken over by somebody else. So it doesn't mean that we don't do work in that technical area, but maybe it's been superseded by something else. We also have what we call domain committees, and these are a small number, and they are across working groups. So we can have working groups working together, of course, and technical committees working together. Domain committees are designed to encourage that. And then we have a number of standing committees, which is basically the various types of organizational type committees. So we have a finance committee, etc. And then we can create task forces when we need to. When we see that a particular area has become important and needs to be investigated further, we can create a task force that will deal with that, with the intention that eventually the task force might become something else, like a working group or a technical committee. And we have a member societies assembly, whereby the various member societies can discuss issues of concern to them, whether that's at the level of the president of society or somebody who's representing the society as an individual. And then we have INTRIIT, which is the International Young IT Group, and this is for members who are under age 35 to encourage students, to encourage young professionals to get involved in a professional society and to be active. So they, again, run events, workshops, conferences, etc. And we have a number of prizes that they compete for, and they also have ambassadors who will represent young IT professionals in their own countries. And I already mentioned IP3, which promotes professionalism and which is concerned with the accreditation of members in, or rather the accreditation of accreditation policies of member societies. So we have 13 technical committees. You'll note there is no TC4. TC4 became so large and so successful that it spun itself out to be the International Medical Informatics Association, or IMIA. We have strong connections with them. In fact, the president of IMIA typically attends our General Assembly and gives a short report. So these are just the technical committees. TC1, which is concerned with foundations of computer science, so theory, algorithms, that sort of thing. TC2 is concerned with software theory and practice, which includes all aspects of software engineering. TC3 is very much concerned with education, and that includes lifelong learning and access to the internet for people in parts of the world that are disadvantaged in that sense. TC5 is concerned with computer applications and technology, so this is application areas, if you like. TC6 is one of our largest TCs and with the most members, and that deals with communication systems in the broadest sense, so it includes the internet, of course. TC7 is concerned with system modeling and optimization. TC8 with information systems. TC9 with the relationship between computers and society, and again, this brings in aspects of ethics and equality and giving people access to the internet. TC10 is computer systems technology. TC11, security and protection in information processing systems. Of course, this is something that's become big news in recent months and years as we see cyber attacks, etc. TC12 is artificial intelligence, and this has existed long before the current trend for artificial intelligence. TC13 is concerned with human-computer interaction, so interfaces, etc. And TC14 is entertainment computing, so how we are entertained by computing-based systems. That includes games, but it also includes serious games, so using game technology in aspects that are not just about entertainment, but for example, using game technology for controlling robots in surgery, etc. So we have a number of flagship events. The World Computer Congress, typically held every 3 years or every 4 years. That's our largest event, which essentially runs as a multi-conference, something a bit like the event you're attending this week. WIT4, the World IT Forum, is a bit different because we don't have papers per se. We have panels, and it tends to involve government, ministers, organizations, as opposed to individuals submitting a paper for review. So it's very much discussion-oriented, panel-oriented. And then we also have the World CIO Forum, which is focused on CIOs and CEOs as well from high technology organizations around the world. So for the future, we want to expand our membership. We'd like to see increased membership around the world. In particular, I already mentioned we'd like to see focus on South America and Africa. So please do tell your friends from other countries if you think their society should join. We want to, of course, continue our top-class publications and events for the members' benefit. We have a digital library that we are working on enhancing further. After 3 years, the policy is that anything we publish with Springer, who is our main publisher, these materials can go into our digital library and are available for free to anyone. You don't have to be a member of an IFIP society to have access. We want to continue providing inputs to policy-making bodies like the UN, the EU, etc. And of course, we will need to focus on new fields and disciplines as we see these become important. So as I said, we can create new working groups, we can create task force to leave an opportunity to address new issues, whether that's on a long-term basis or a short-term basis. So we are flexible about creating working groups and retiring working groups when we think that their job has been done. And then, of course, we want to address the needs of society, and this is particularly focused on the SDGs and on ethics and equality. So we have 2 books coming out to celebrate our 60th anniversary. The first one is out. It is IFIP AICT, that's Advances in ICT, which is a book series published with Springer. It's volume 555, and it looks at the opportunities and challenges of ICT, where ICT is going. It talks a little bit about the history of IFIP, but only a little. It's mostly looking towards the future and important topics. And this book is available for free. You can download it from our website. If you go to the IFIP website, you'll find the link quite easily. You can either download the entire book or you can download individual chapters. But it is available for free, and it will continue to be available for free. And we also have a volume 600, which is currently in press, that will also be available via our website, and that will be more technical. So we'll talk more about what our technical committees do, as opposed to this one, which is talking more about the future of ICT. So thank you again for your kind invitation to join you, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mike, for this very complete presentation about today's ICT challenges, and also about IFIP, its history. And I must say that the Brazilian Computer Society is fully committed to the IFIP's mission, and of course, UNESCO's missions as well. Yeah. And we collaborate not only in the GA, General Assembly, but in the Member Societies Assembly, and more than 60 members in IFIP working groups and technical committees. So we are very happy to be part of this very important and fundamental Federation of Computer Societies. I think we have a question here that I'd like to ask to you. And I think it's a very good question for all of us. How do IFIP envision the acceleration of remote activities caused by the pandemic will affect future IFIP events? That's a question. Will there be a return to only face-to-face events, or hybrid events are here to stay? What do you think about that?
I think hybrid events are here to stay, at least in the short term. I know many people are anxious to get back to real life and getting back to actual meetings, and I do agree there are advantages to real life meetings. It's all very well to participate in an online event when you know people, but you get to know people by meeting them in reality. Although I have to say, I found that my students seem to be doing very well with having online classes. They seem to engage more, maybe because they're more used to using social media and they feel more comfortable with social media than actual in-person meetings. But I do absolutely think that we'll have hybrid at least for a while. We've deliberately delayed our 60th anniversary celebration in the hope that we will be able to have a real life in-person meeting. And that was to be held at UNESCO in Paris, because that's where we were created. Unfortunately, that doesn't look like it's going to happen. It will be hybrid at best. It may be completely online. And I am encouraging people to go online, at least in the short term. I mean, my university tells us we're back to classes on the 6th of September, and I can absolutely tell you that will not happen. It is crazy. So now they've just announced today that any class with more than 300 students will be online no matter what. So I think people are realizing this situation will continue for at least another while. I hope it won't continue forever, but I do think it'll continue at least for another few months, maybe even a year or two. But hybrid events maybe are a compromise. And I know that some people have been using the idea of breakout rooms so that people can have a chat with each other on a more one-to-one basis. It's not the same as meeting somebody over a coffee, but at least it's some opportunity to have smaller discussions. And obviously, papers being presented is great, but I think the big advantage of a conference is the side conversations that you have, and you get to make friends and get to know people.
All right, thank you. We have two more questions that I put together so you can try to answer the two questions. The first that we're discussing here in the Congress, how innovation and digital transformation can help us to deal with the uncertainty faced by our society, such as climate change, social and economic challenges, and the pandemic itself. What is the role of IFIP, SBC, and other member societies in dealing with these challenges? That's the first question. Okay. What do you think about that? And second question, what advice would you give to attending students who wish to contribute more actively with IFIP.
Okay.
So I think we need more students in this structure, and very important for our future, not only our SBC, but IFIP and other continent societies as well.
Okay, maybe I'll address the two questions in reverse order, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, SBC, as you say, is a very valued member of IFIP and has been for a long time. And you're absolutely right that we have a lot of members of SBC involved in our working groups and our technical committees, where they are excellent contributors, and that's really, really important. And I would encourage your students to consider getting involved in that way. In particular, I mean, when their studies are out of the way and they can concentrate on these sort of things, we don't want to distract them too much. But get involved in SBC's student structure. Get involved with other students and get to know other students, because they will be your colleagues in the future. And do attend the student events. We have a number of events run by Internet, and there's one coming up at the end of August, which will be free to attend. I think it's a good opportunity. It will be online, of course, so you don't have to travel. But do get involved in our student-led events, because, again, these will be your international colleagues in the future. And, there's extra. SBC is going to provide you with papers. It's going to provide you with expertise. It's going to provide you with access to conferences and journals, which I know something about, as you know. But also it's going to give you the support network that you need. And so I would say get involved with SBC student events. And then, of course, when you graduate, get involved with the other events on a greater level, and join into our Internet events so that you have an opportunity to meet with students around the world, especially if we're not going to be traveling for a while. The first question was, how can IFIP contribute? Well, IFIP really is the representative body of all of our member societies and all of our technical people who are members of those societies. So we're representing SBC, but we're also representing the members of SBC, just as we're representing the ACM and the BCS and the Irish Computer Society. And it's very important that we have that voice for our profession, that our people are understood, that we're seen to be professional, we're seen to be constantly trying to improve the situation, improve our expertise, improve our learning, continuing with lifelong learning, and that we're contributing to society. And I do think that, the 17 categories that the United Nations has in the Sustainable Development Goals are very well thought out. As I said, there's 169 actions, but they have been very well thought out to be achievable by the end of 2030. And I think that IFIP can bring a lot of expertise from our members, from our member societies, from our technical committees, and from our working groups to contribute to this. And we do that. We get very much involved in United Nations events. We get very much involved in their technical events. I mentioned WESIS, the World Summit on the Information Society, which is a major player in this and attracts prime ministers and ministers for education, ministers for research, ministers for science, who are the people who will listen to us and take back that information to their governments. And as I said, this year it was run over, I think, a 6-week period, so that there was an event almost every week, and they were in different time zones so that people could get involved. But normally we would go there and have a physical presence. And these are the sort of ways that SBC gets a voice into world affairs and gets to contribute towards these SDGs, and gets to contribute to improving society for everyone.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to add that cooperation and collaboration is a key point, and to overcome these new challenges. And I think it helps a lot with this collaboration for us and for many parts of the world. Mike, I also would like to recognize your collaboration, very important collaboration with us. Mike is also the editor-in-chief of the Brazilian Computer Society Journal, and has been collaborating with us for a long time. So it's really a great honor for us to have you here with us. for your position as the IFIP president and for the important work you have been doing for all of us, for the world, and for SBC. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
See you in IFIP soon.
Absolutely, and thank you again for the invitation to join you. And as I say, I've had long engagement with SBC. It has a special affinity for me, and we do appreciate that the members of SBC contribute so much to our technical committees and our working groups. And it's really important that they continue to do that, because the people who have been contributing are very good technically and very, shall we say, very much engaged and really do look to collaborate. And that is so valuable, I think, for all of us. That's how we will improve society for all of us.
Thank you. We have a short time for a quick question, for a quick answer.
Okay.
I think it's very important, this question, because it's about open science. So
I just see this, from Jose, yeah.
Yeah. Can you comment on that, please?
Yes, there has been a number of working groups who have looked at open science, and I absolutely agree. It's something that is important, in particular as we're seeing the importance of big data and access to this data. I would absolutely encourage this. And Jose, you are a member of SBC, so that means you're a member of IFIP. So why don't you get involved?
Yeah. That's right. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Presentation.
Thank you. We'll see you in the GA. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.